Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning.
How is Hawaii?
Things are good. I'm actually in California now. We have a little bit of fires burning and some smoke and a little bit of pandemic, but otherwise I'm okay.
Well, here it's rainy. It's a pleasure to have a talk with you, and actually we owe this pleasure to Gintarė Balcevičiūtė, one of the global Lithuanians who made this interview to happen. So like big kudos to her. And in general, Coursera is one of the first and probably the greatest EdTech today. And as EdTechs are startups, and all startups were deemed to be pirates in the beginning, so Coursera might be one of the biggest pirates who has survived for a decade or more in this very slowly changing education field. So now, being one of the greatest EdTechs, soon to do an IPO, supposedly, how do you feel among the establishment, the universities or the higher education in general? Like, how are you perceived, and what do you think role Coursera fills in?
Well, first of all, it is a pleasure to be here, and we're honored to be working with the Lithuanian Employment Services and the Cabinet Office. And I will tell you that this government moves very rapidly. We rolled out the Workforce Recovery Initiative with learners in Lithuania faster than almost any other country. Already, Lithuania is among the global top 10 countries on Coursera with the Workforce Recovery Initiative. So if there is a lesson to be learned about innovation and speed, many countries can learn a lesson from Lithuania. I also say thank you very much for your flattering remarks. It is a privilege for me to be at Coursera. I've been the CEO for 3.5 years. Before this, I was in a fintech company for 18 years. I was the first employee at a company called Financial Engines. And it is interesting to see how industries are being transformed. Financial services, professional services, travel, entertainment, content, media, and now higher education. And the ability for online learning to transform higher education has really been accelerated because of COVID. It is also accelerating the digital transformation of businesses. It is also accelerating the rate at which governments can help individuals who become unemployed get new skills and new job opportunities. So I think there's a lot of promise in what's happening with online learning.
And how are you perceived by universities? Because in a way, you're threatening their business model, especially during the lockdown period, when all the learning has transpired to online. So what do you think, how do universities feel about Coursera, and how does Coursera feel about being part of higher education? What role does it serve?
Well, 8 years ago in 2012, Coursera was founded by 2 university professors. It's something of an experiment that escaped the lab. 2 professors, Daphne Kohler and Andrew Ng, both computer scientists, put some courses up on the internet in 2012. Hundreds of thousands of students came. It launched Coursera. Today, we have 70 million learners around the world learning on Coursera. The growth rates have been stunning, partly driven by COVID. We've had over 440% increase in learners on the platform, over 700% increase in enrollments in Lithuania. And how we're perceived, it's interesting, because we were founded by universities, and because over 4,000 courses have been authored by 150 of the top universities in the world on Coursera, our partners really see us as an enablement platform. In fact, they author on Coursera because they want to reach corners of the world that they cannot reach with their campuses. They want to be able to reach new individuals directly, B2C. And then 5 years ago, we launched Coursera for Business, where we actually sell to businesses access to our partners' courses, both universities and industry content, so that they can upskill and reskill their employees. We also offered Coursera for Government, which we're doing with the Cabinet of Lithuania. And we just launched in Q4 Coursera for Campus. Now the timing was perfect. Coursera for Campus is a version of Coursera for any of the 25,000 universities or colleges in the world to use the online content authored by our partners to teach online. And so, of course, we've seen dramatic growth generally in the consumer channel, but also even more so in the Coursera for Campus channel.
Touching upon Coursera for Campus and online education in general, what do you think will be the new normal post-pandemic, or actually during the pandemic? Then universities must, some of them go bankrupt, they have to close, and some others are thriving in this online environment. And meanwhile, Coursera is a facilitator of many. But what do you think will be the new normal in online education, or actually in higher education in general? Will online be the new normal?
I think blended will be the new normal. Right now, online is the current state. UNESCO tracks school closures. In April of 2020, at the height of the pandemic closures, UNESCO reported that 90% of all schools in the world closed. 1.6 billion students from kindergarten through college had their schools closed. And so it really forced all students, virtually every student in the world, and almost every teacher in the world, whether these are kindergarten teachers or professors, everybody was forced to try online learning, just like almost everybody who's an employee is forced to try remote working. And what we think is that, campuses will open back up, but now that people have experienced the efficiency, the effectiveness, the personalization, and frankly, the access that's available through online learning, I believe, and I think broadly, the perception is online learning is very much here to stay. A few things I think will be different. Number one, I don't think it's going to be all on campus. Almost every school, I think, will offer a major part of the curriculum online, even for students who are on campus. But especially when it comes to lifelong learning, which is more important than ever because skills are changing and business is changing with new technologies, people will need to learn for the rest of their lives. So it's not that you learn for the 4 years you're in college, you need to learn for the rest of your life, and universities have a chance to create a lifelong relationship with their students. Of course, that's going to be delivered online. We also think, of course, a lot more of the curriculum will go online. We have 20 full degrees on Coursera that our partners deliver, from Imperial College of London to University of Michigan to University of Pennsylvania. These are full degrees. Tuitions are going to be under pressure, so affordable degrees will be more important. And job relevance is another feature of higher education I think will be changing. I think integrating more job relevant skill development and tool skilling will be an important part of curriculum changes in higher education going forward.
So as you have mentioned, Coursera more or less changed the way of delivery of education to online, but also we have some other things that are unchanged about higher education, such as degrees. Do we really need to stick to the same structure of degrees, whereas people need to learn lifelong skills and reskill in many cases into digital skills, and those university degrees do not make sense anymore? So what is Coursera thinking in that realm? Because currently you're working mostly with university degree programs, and the labor market needs something that we could use quickly to reskill or upskill large labor force.
I think similar to the question of online versus on campus, I think the answer is a blend. Similarly, college degrees versus industry certificates, I think the answer will be a blend. Already when we offer our degrees, our part degrees on Coursera, they're offered not only as a full degree, but also as stackable certificates. So you can earn part of a degree that can count towards a full degree, but you don't have to do the full degree. University of Colorado Boulder has a master's in electrical engineering where you don't even have to do the admissions process. You start taking the degree, one certificate of the degree. If you finish the certificate and get really good grades, you can be admitted to the degree program purely based on your performance in that certificate program. So degrees will, I think, continue to be very important. They'll be broken up into smaller modular certificates, which we're already seeing on our platform today. And then the real collaboration between industry and universities is happening already, and I'll explain how. One of our most popular, in fact, the most popular certificate on Coursera is the Google IT Support Professional Certificate. So far, it has been enrolled in by 370,000 people. Now, what Google did is they said, what's an entry-level job that pays well, that does not require a college degree, and does not require any background in the field, that you can teach the skills to online? They said IT support. There's many unfilled IT support jobs. They created an IT support certificate. They put it on Coursera. We have 60 companies who are hiring partners that will hire people into these IT jobs without a college degree. But we also have University of London and Northeastern University and University of North Texas, who said, if you finish the Google IT support, this is a certificate from Google, we will give you academic credit towards a bachelor's degree in computer science. So it's not either or. We can see people start with an industry certificate and get a good paying job, and then also have that certificate count towards a college degree that they can earn online while they're working and making a good salary. And we started with Google IT, but we now have the IBM Data Scientist Professional Certificate, IBM Cybersecurity Analyst. Yesterday, we launched the Facebook Social Media Marketer, the Salesforce Sales Development Representative, the IBM Data Analyst, and then 2 weeks ago, we announced the Google UX Designer Certificate, the Google Software Project Manager Certificate, and the Google Data Analyst Certificate. So these job-related certificate programs will get jobs and also degrees.
I can say only wow, because BitDegree is working with similar programs, so now we are in trouble. But like my follow-up question would be, if you consider that online has actually disrupting borders, in online world or online learning, borders are not important anymore. So why do credits from different countries and different universities cannot be stacked together? And does Coursera think about such a global degree maybe, or helping to assemble such a degree?
Well, it's fascinating. 3 years ago, there are 3 universities in Latin America: Tec de Monterrey in Mexico, Universidad de los Andes in Colombia, and Católica de Chile in Chile. And they decided, these 3 different universities in 3 different countries, that they wanted to collaborate. So what they did is they took all of their courses on Coursera, they put them together in a collection, a unified catalog, and all student, faculty, and staff on all 3 campuses can use all of the courses from all 3 universities in their studies towards their degrees. We are seeing these kinds of collaborations starting to spring up between Hong Kong and Europe, with Latin America and Europe, with America and Europe, and we think that this collaboration is going to be a very big part of the future of higher education. So it is happening, it's pretty organic. It is not a centralized decision-making process, but universities are starting to realize if they collaborate, they can reach more learners and provide a better education.
Excellent. Another question is actually diving deeper in the case study of Lithuania with Coursera for Governments. And I dare to say that it is one of the most successful education initiatives in the country this year, referring to my friend's post, which received nearly 1,000 likes and a lot of shares, where she said, oh my God, you can take Coursera courses if you register with the Unemployment Bureau of Lithuania. And as I know, the numbers are quite amazing, given the population of Lithuania. More than 10,000 people have signed up for courses, which also shows that Lithuanians want to learn. Lifelong learning is prevalent in Lithuania, unlike maybe some of the statistics say. And maybe you could comment a bit more about this initiative with the Lithuanian government, and what is your vision towards such initiatives for the future? Is it here to stay?
Yeah, so the first initiative that we did in response to COVID was a university initiative where we basically said any university in the world that's been impacted by COVID can have our partners' courses on Coursera for Campus for free through September 30th. And since March, 10,000 programs have been launched, 1.76 million students, 12 million course enrollments, and 32 million hours of learning. So we knew that school closures was going to be one of the immediate impacts of COVID. We saw the next big wave coming, which is going to be unemployment. So we decided, let's get our partners together and let's put together a package for COVID emergency response for government workforce development agencies. We call it the Workforce Recovery Initiative. We launched this in May. Today we have 291 programs up and running, 70 countries, 27 of the United States. Lithuania is one of the early countries to do this. Altogether, we have 480,000 learners who've logged more than 4 million hours. But in Lithuania, since we've launched, we've already got 33,000 course enrollments through this Workforce Recovery Initiative. And when you look at the types of courses and the people that are taking those courses, it's really stunning. So the average age of Lithuanians taking courses in this program is about 30. That's typical. That's about the average age of the typical Coursera learner. What's interesting though is usually there's slightly more men than women taking courses on Coursera. Usually it's 54% male, global average, versus 46% female. But in Lithuania, it's 52% female, 48% male. So more women than men taking the courses. And when we look at the most popular courses in Lithuania, it really says a lot about the thirst for knowledge among Lithuanian. The #1 course on Coursera for learners in Lithuania is Learning How to Learn, Powerful Mental Tools to Help You Master Tough Subject. This is a course taught by University of California, San Diego. It's taught by a neurobiologist. They teach you how to learn.
So our event is actually called Learning Fever, and we want to, let's say, spread the fever among the government and all the learners and EdTechs. And a question would be, you know, if there is such a successful initiative with Coursera by the government, you know, what would it really take for government to revolutionize education? You know, if you would be in the shoes of the government, what would you do? You know, given that you are already working with the next generation reskilling tools such as pathways and similar things, you know, what is your daring challenge to the governments to change education for better?
It's a few things that I would say, and I'm not a public policy expert, but we do work with countries and presidents and ministers around the world. And here's some of the best examples that I am seeing. First, you need access. Some of the countries in Africa are doing 0 rating on their data plans so that any educational provider, those data plans are free for learners in the country. Of course, having good connectivity is as important as having electricity and clean water. So governments first need to make sure you have connectivity, you have access to bandwidth at low price. Regional hotspots are really important so people don't have to use their phones all the time. And on Coursera, all of the courses can be downloaded and watched offline. This is a really important factor. One of the things people don't realize about online learning is if you only have synchronous live learning, it requires a lot of bandwidth. Bandwidth is expensive. It actually creates an equity gap. Offline asynchronous content is very important. So I say the first thing is connectivity. Second thing is access to content. The third thing is a linkage, institutional linkages between the government, education policy, and employers, so that you can be very intentional about saying what kinds of jobs will be available in the economy, what kinds of skills will be required to get those jobs and perform well in those jobs, and then how can you get into the educational system to make sure the educational system is getting access to the skills development for those jobs of the future. Governments are wonderful facilitators of that education, employment, government support network, and that's what I would encourage governments to really focus on.
How would you advise governments to establish relationships with EdTechs?
You know, I think that as with, you know, there's a seminal book called The Lean Startup. It's one of the favorites of many entrepreneurs. It talks about how you build a business. A lot of what it really comes down to is finding an unmet need for a certain kind of person, putting out a prototype because you're not sure what's going to solve that need, and iterating and testing. I would encourage governments to first experiment with a wide variety of players, be really clear about the hypothesis, what are you trying to prove with that experiment, and then I have a phrase I call nail it, then scale it. Once you figure out that you have product market fit, that an experiment is working and the hypothesis is true, then you double down and scale up rapidly. I'm optimistic that what we're learning already with the government of Lithuania, with this free program that we're doing for workforce recovery, will teach us so many things about who in Lithuania is most likely to be a learner, what skills they need to learn, and what will create good employment opportunities. It won't be everyone, but we're going to find some things that work. And when we do, we should scale them.
Thank you. Now, transitioning a bit to other side. So with this event, we have also launched EdTech Lithuania, which is a gathering of local EdTechs and all the stakeholders who want to implement tech in education. And, you know, for EdTechs, it's not easy to start and get to the size of Coursera. So maybe you could share some tips and tricks, you know, how EdTechs could find a way to become as big and successful as Coursera.
All right, take this for what it's worth. This is one person's advice. I've been a CEO for 25 years, though. I actually was the first employee of a company when I was 27, and I went to look for venture capital funding. And some of the partners at the Mayfield Fund up on Sand Hill Road, they said, Jeff, most startups die not from starvation, but indigestion. They try to do too much. So I'd say, first of all, focus. Second of all, focus first on the customer's problem. Whose problem are you trying to solve? That's the most important thing. Don't start with the technology, start with the customer's problem. Then come up with prototypes. Don't get overcommitted. Don't spend too much. Don't build something really huge. Build something small and test it out. Say, do I understand the nature of the problem? Do I understand who has that problem? Do I have an offering that roughed out as a prototype solves that problem? And keep iterating quickly until you do. Now, what it's going to take to iterate quickly is a great team of passionate people who don't give up. Smart, passionate, persistent people is really the heart of any really successful technology startup.
And what to do if you don't know what to do? You know, so what is the hot opportunity right now for EdTechs? You know, what Coursera cannot seize right now, but small.
Yesterday, they were in stealth mode. I don't know that they've announced their product yet, so I won't say who it is. But what they have built is a class management system on top of Zoom. What every entrepreneur, especially in EdTech, needs to realize is that the thing that creates opportunities for entrepreneurs is when the world changes. When the world changes quickly, most big institutions don't change so quickly. That creates opportunities. Find your opportunities in ways the world has changed that others haven't seized yet. COVID and online learning is just a massive opportunity waiting for entrepreneurs to jump in. I would suggest you find a focused problem that ideally could sit on top of a platform like Zoom or like Coursera or many others and build that out and see if you can't get faster scale by solving a narrow problem, but with a distribution system that's already in place.
So if you have found this idea or this opportunity, you know, how do you seize it? What advice do you have for a go-to-market, let's say in global higher education field, or even for, you know, corporate learning?
Yeah, there's one example that I will use to answer the question. Of course, there's many different ways that you could do it. We at Coursera realize that universities are very good at teaching theory and concepts and principles. And the format of the learning for most Coursera courses is lecture style with quizzes and some assessments. What we were looking for was hands-on projects. We found a company in Sofia, Bulgaria, and they had built a virtual machine environment where you can actually do hands-on projects. And we were introduced to this company, and they were raising a round of financing. And we looked at that and they said, do you want to participate in this investment round or not? The key thing is they had an alternative. They said, we're going to become an independent company and raise a round. And I said, well, your technology would work really well on Coursera because it would give you that hands-on learning that we really need. And they basically did what some people call a dual path. They went to raise financing, and they also talked to us about potentially being acquired. And we love the team, we love the technology, and this hands-on learning complemented the university knowledge. And so we ended up acquiring the company. And now we have a team in Sofia, Bulgaria that is twice as big as it was. It is now our third engineering footprint in the world after Mountain View, Toronto, and now in Bulgaria. So this is the way technology works. I'd say build your company, make it independent, be open to partnerships as you go along.
Thank you. What is the Coursera's strategy of engaging with EdTechs? Do you actively invest and acquire? Do you have like hundreds of EdTechs on your list to track and maybe pilot some solutions together? So what is your strategy of collaboration with EdTechs?
Yeah, well, I do think when we think about Coursera, we think of it as a platform. In terms of content, universities and companies author content and we deliver that to a global learner base. But as a technology stack, we also think of it as a platform. We think of Coursera in a way as a platform of platforms. We've integrated Zoom, we've integrated Slack, we've integrated Turnitin, we've integrated ProctorU. We've integrated many, many different technologies because we can't build them all and we don't need to build them all. So when we think about acquisition, we start really with partnership. And what that really starts with is business model. And what that really starts with is the customer. So the first question we really ask ourselves is, what needs do we need to solve for? Then we say, what solutions would solve for them? And then we say, well, who has those solutions? We don't just randomly talk to lots of companies. We talk to companies that have solutions to problems that our customers need solved that we have not yet solved. Sometimes we partner, but if it really looks like it integrates well, we might acquire the company.
Thank you very much. And the last question to close, Jeff, what could we do to have every morning a number of Lithuanian students infected with learning fever, with the willingness to learn? What could we do as an EdTech Lithuania and as the government of Lithuania? What would be your parting advice for us in this regard?
We have a group in the United States called Teach for America. They're people that after college go and become teachers all around the country. And Teach for America has a saying. They say, don't expect a child to learn until they say two things. I want to, and I can. That really is the basis of learning. And I heard Esther talk before me, and I totally agree. Access is one of the most important pieces of this. Of course, you need to provide access. You have to give them the ability to access the content, but that's not enough. There has to be the will and the motivation to want to learn. Part of that is by celebrating people who do learn, but a lot of it, frankly, is linking the learning to the earning. When there is a job opportunity that is part of what the learning might promise, people are far more likely to start, they're far more likely to finish. So I would say celebrate the learners and link the learning to the earning with good job opportunities that can come from learning the skills online.
Thank you very much, Jeff. You're really welcome to come visit Lithuania when this pandemic is over. And
I would love to.
Thank you very much again for sharing this insightful knowledge of yours. And good luck with running the company and heading to IPO.
Thank you. It is an honor to be working with the government and people of Lithuania. And when I come, when this pandemic is over, I will be sure to visit. Thank you for having me today.